Hello, and welcome back to A Musician and a Filmmaker, the podcast with the least consistent format and release schedule on the internet.
We're consistent about being inconsistent, so it's a win and a lose at the same time.
We are very much a contradiction of a podcast because we want people to watch it, but at the same time we gave it one of the most unmarketable names possible. So how was Canada Day, Jordan? How did everything go there?
It went smoothly, I would say. It's one of those days. It's a little bit of a contradictory day in and of itself because we do like to celebrate the country that we live in, but at the same time we do acknowledge the history is less than perfect.
Right.
So it's one of those mixed bag kind of days. I think everyone kind of celebrates in their own way, but the fireworks were fun to look at. Very exciting if you're not a dog, if
or you veteran.
Or a veteran.
Do they have those in Canada?
Veterans?
Do they have Canadian veterans?
Yes. There are a few. They fought in the wars, alongside you guys.
We also had our Independence Day here in the old USA. Pretty uneventful, pretty much same as you described it. We may not love everything about the country, but it is still the country we're from and reside in, and it's, I'm sure, better than many other places on Earth, especially when you go to the Eastern Hemisphere. But that feeling only really lasted. I mean, obviously the election is a real doozy this time, because Joe Biden is just. And this isn't a political podcast, but I mean,
it is now. It is
slightly.
There's too much to talk about for it not to be.
Yeah. Joe Biden is just slowly sundowning, which is a thing that happens to dementia patients. And the fact that there are so many establishment Democrats trying to gaslight the public into thinking, no, he's fine. It's I can literally see that he's not fine anytime you put him in front of a camera. So, that's the direction it was already going in. And so it was just well, if they're going to keep him on board, then Trump's going to get elected. I wasn't going to vote for many reasons this year, including the fact that, we're in 2 proxy wars right now that I don't approve of as a U.S. citizen. And, I can't rightfully vote for someone that I know is committing atrocities or is funding the committing of atrocities and providing the weapons that carry them out. So, it really is just last time it was the lesser of 2 evils. Now it's just I'm not even going to bother with that gray area. But then yesterday someone decided they were going to shoot Donald Trump in the face. And so it doesn't really matter. He's going to win anyway after that.
That's all he needed.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
My cat's taking a shit right now behind me on the floor.
Hey, it's the thing that you prepare for during the Deacon interview. Is he playing with the shit now? Is he trying to scoop up the floor like it's litter?
This is a cover-up attempt right now, but we have the footage, so we all know what happened.
Kitty.
Oh God. Well, you know what? If the timing could have ever been better, with this shit show that's unfolding in the United States and the world right now,
and behind you.
And behind me, all around me, actually.
Yeah.
It's really, my cat, smart cat.
I'm so glad that that didn't happen during the Deacon interview.
I mean, it would have been kind of funny, but I'm also glad that it didn't happen. Yeah. I'm not overly stoked that it happened right now either, just to be clear.
And we can take a break at any time you would like to not have the toxoplasmosis slowly entering your
my
lungs.
nostrils.
Yeah.
We're what the audience will see right now is a magic hard cut to a turd not being right there.
Actually, even better, I'll do a star wipe.
Oh.
Bing!
Oh!
Whoa!
Where'd it go?
The incredible, amazing, disappearing cat shit.
Poof.
That was the original name for the podcast, but we still decided that was too long.
We never knew that this moment would come. If we had concrete evidence that it would all lead to this, then obviously
We
the
would've stuck with
podcast
it,
would have been
yeah.
gone. Yeah. But it was too much of a gamble.
Anyway, so the reason we bring up the president and elections and political turmoil and, you know, that sense of despair you get just being a human being on the planet Earth, alive, is because the album we decided to talk about is The Eraser by Thom Yorke from 2006, which is post Radiohead's Hail to the Thief, which was very much... Have you ever seen Peep Show?
Of course.
So you know the clip where Jeremy is reading his old poetry from high school? And he's like, "Fuck you, Bush. What are you even doing in Iraq, Bush?"
Fuck you, Bush. It's time to get out of Iraq, Bush. What were you even doing there in the first place, Bush? You didn't even get properly elected, Bush.
Yeah, getting real
Fuck
deep with the political
you,
stuff.
Bush. Yeah, and this I would say The Eraser is less fuck you Bush and more fuck you corrupt British politicians.
And fuck you, climate change.
Well, that too. But that's also been a theme in his I guess this is probably where it started, and it's been a pervasive theme in his work for the last almost 2 decades since. So, but yeah, this is very much a politically charged, angry album.
It's an angry album that is claustrophobic and is is a real weird treat for Radiohead fans when it came out, especially.
Yeah. So you said you had some take that.
Oh yes.
You wanted to share with me for the first time. A hot take.
I have a hot take.
Jordan Randall hot take, TM.
Here it is. You've been waiting almost a week to hear me say this.
That's true.
And here it is. So, all right, listen. I was around in 2006 when this album came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was aware of Radiohead. And, you know, listened to them. I would say even that at some point I considered myself a fan. I hated this album when it came out. Hated it.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
I'm less disappointed to hear the qualifier when it came out.
Yes.
Because then that opens it up to...
Yeah, that spoils the ending of my story here. But yeah, I still hate it. No, I found that now, almost 20 years later, it's a really good album. But I think that it matches what I appreciate more these days in music than I did in those days. Because I think this album was too, dare I say, boring. I think it was.
I can see that.
It was weird, and I did have like weird, interests, but I don't think that I had the patience to like really kind of like let all of the aspects of this album sink in. I think I gave it like one listen through when it came out, and I was like, Black Swan's pretty good, but the other ones aren't as catchy. And I think that's what I was looking for too. I think I was kind of expecting like a Radiohead thing, even though they obviously can go in many different directions as well. But this one, it's kind of weird. This felt like a Dance Manatee or something, where it was just like this is too challenging for me to really wrap my head around, so I'm just gonna fucking move on. And I did, and I really didn't listen to this thing, with the exception of maybe Black Swan here and there, and maybe a couple of the other songs, until you decided that we were going to talk about this on this cast. So, thanks for bringing it up, because I'm glad. I've been listening to this thing on repeat since I don't know, 2 weeks ago,
when we were first going to record the podcast.
Exactly.
The behind the scenes of this podcast is just a series of being like, hey, let's do it on this day. And then we get closer to that day and it's like, oh, hey, something came out. Can we reschedule it for like, half a week from now? And that's the reason why we didn't do a movie last month after the Deacon podcast. We meant to. We were going to talk about the movie we're talking about this month, Uncut Gems. Spoilers for the next episode. But it just didn't work out. Life kept getting in the way for both of us, and we didn't. So we're going to fill in the gaps there a little bit. We're going to talk about something else in like a special edition episode. Anyway, enough being meta. Let's get back to the topic at hand. It is interesting that like Thom Yorke only did Radiohead for like, they started in 92, so they were already almost like 15 years deep at this point. Although I'm sure the band like On a Friday and all that goes back even further to when they were like in high school.
Sure.
So, but this is the first time he ever put out anything as Thom Yorke, which is interesting to me. That it was just like, I know that Hail to the Thief, like they were really serious about it at the time, but in retrospect, they're like, yeah, we put too many songs on that one, and we definitely could have trimmed it down and made it better. But it was more just about like, you know, the reaction to the moment in society at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, do you think that your initial distaste for The Eraser was because at no point on the album does he say, I'm blue, dabba dee, dabba die, dabba dee, dabba die?
I mean, yeah, of course, that's the biggest factor, but there's other factors too, you know.
Well, I'm looking at you right now, and I feel like there's a black light turned on, and if you were to like smile, I could see like a dead tooth or something that would be glowing. I'm not trying to insinuate that you have a dead tooth.
I'm doing this for political value, and
you're trying to demonstrate how politically blue you are,
but also how neutral I am, because I've also got the red sunglasses, famously from the topical film Civil War.
This album, I think we're tying it back in with just like, it's crazy fucking times, and history just keeps repeating itself, and we're always just unsure of the future and trying to make sense of the chaos around us. And I think that that's illustrated in like the electronic palette of this album. The fact that it is very loop heavy, almost entirely based on electronic loops and samples and bleep bloops, and you know what I mean?
It's a bleep blooper for sure. It's a bleep blooper.
Especially the closer. I think there's literally a few moments on Cymbal Rush where you can hear the song going like, it's like that SpongeBob bit when Mr. Krabs calls into the radio station. He calls into the radio station, and the DJ, he's like,
Yes, hello. I was wondering if you could play that song again.
Which one, man?
The one that goes
beep, boop, 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 boop.
Cymbal Rush starts playing. That
I need to make that edit, actually.
No, man, you're thinking of...
You know what, though? It's so funny. Did you do this on purpose? I feel like you didn't, because I think that it was just happenstance that we rescheduled so many times that Uncut Gems ended up here. But, like, this fucking... if you got rid of Thom Yorke's voice on this album, this could be, like, the soundtrack to Uncut Gems.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning when I was doing prep. I was like, these both have a very similar, like, orchestrated chaos feeling to them. Where, like, Uncut Gems it feels chaotic in the moment, but you know every single moment on screen, even the overlapping dialogue, was meticulously placed and planned. I mean, they spent 10 years making that fucking movie, from, like, the first draft to the 160th. But anyway...
We'll discuss that.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, because I could just go on and on about. We would just not talk about the Eraser.
Why don't we just like really flip this thing and just talk about Uncut Gems from here on out, and then in the Uncut Gems episode, then we can give our thoughts about the Eraser.
No.
Jeez. Okay. For a moment there, you know, the silence, though, I actually thought you might, because I can't see your face with these stupid glasses on. So
well, maybe you could remedy that.
I feel I'm in the vibe now, though. You know, it's kind of cool.
Okay.
It's
Did you just
creating
I think Jordan
visual.
got a little high off of some cat piss, and
Nothing
now he's
hits
trying
the
to
spot.
hide it. He's trying to hide how red his eyes are.
by just making them even more red.
That's why Bono looks like that all the time. That's why he has that specific tint to his sunglasses.
Maybe that's why Jesse Plemons' character is wearing these in Civil War. He's just really fucking high, and he doesn't want anyone to know.
There you go.
Pabst Blue Ribbon. This episode is sponsored by Pabst Blue Ribbon, everybody, you know?
That's a interesting choice for a Canadian to be drinking such a red-blooded American beer.
I mean, it's from, where's it from? Milwaukee or something?
Yeah. And I guess you could say Milwaukee is basically Canada, but
It's basically Canada.
well, it's certainly Pabst Blue in your
Blue.
frame there.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I got all the color schemes going on here. I'm trying to become like a Twitch streamer. I'm trying to get like the ambiance, but
Should we go track by track for this album, Jordan?
we could do it. I mean,
Instead
there's
of
9
just procrastinating and talking in circles.
Yeah, I feel like let's do it. Let's just
Should
jump
we
right in.
do
Oh,
the podcast that we planned?
Let's do it. Okay.
Okay.
The Eraser. The song.
The title track, the opening track, The Eraser.
The Eraser. Did you know? Do you know, Greg? I bet you know.
Did I know the thing I was probably about to say?
Probably. The first sound that you hear on Thom Yorke's fucking first solo album is Johnny Greenwood.
I did. In fact, I was about to say that exact same thing. I don't remember if he had like a recording of those chords from like a jam session or if he heard it somewhere and then had Johnny specifically recreate it for the album. But it might have been the former, and that's why he was credited.
What I understand is that Johnny Greenwood was literally, I think they were at like some sort of recording session or something, but he was just jamming on the piano. And then Thom Yorke threw his recorder like on top of the piano and just let it record and like got this stuff. And I don't even think Johnny Greenwood knew that had been recorded. And it wasn't like planned on being a song or anything. It came up like, however long later down the road. And then Mr. Yorke was like, fuck, I'm going to use this in the song. So
Right.
how about that?
Well, I think it's kind of a similar origin story to Idiotech from Kid A, which was, I can't remember who it was, but someone put together, it might have been Nigel Godrich, put together like a 50-minute just mix of like loops and samples from all these weird electronic like Kraftwerk or Kraftwerk inspired type albums. And there was like literally just like one 4-chord pattern that happened like halfway through it. And Tom was like, cut it down to literally just that, and that's the song. Ditch the rest. Just toss the rest in the trash. So
it was a great decision.
Were there any lyrics that I feel like I definitely did more prep for the movie than the album this time, so I didn't get the chance to write down any lyrics that stuck out. But are there any from this particular song that
in the Eraser?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I didn't deep dive in the lyrics myself, but I got this sort of general sense of change. I think is kind of like what the song is about things getting a new start. Starting fresh.
It also sounds like he's having an argument with a girlfriend or something. I feel like this album, I wouldn't say it's actually entirely politically charged. There is a fair amount of it where it's about like almost explicitly like an Atoms for Peace, the song, which is its own rabbit hole of shared pseudonyms and reused titles.
Sure.
But,
yeah. That song's kind of that. I mean, that's more of a, environmental,
You think so?
Environmentally conscious. I think so. Atoms for Peace. The title's kind of.
Well, the title is, sure, but I think when you actually analyze the lyrical content of the song, there's not really anything about the actual like.
Isn't that the one with like the flying saucer eyes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know.
I believe it's that one, if anything, seems the least ambiguous in terms of like what it's about.
It's about
but
aliens.
That isn't unlike Thom Yorke to name a song after something that has nothing to do with the actual subject.
The Eraser. It's a good song. It's a good teaser, I guess, of what the sonic palette is for the album. Like, I think when I heard it for the first time, back in 2006, it was like, like I said, I wasn't really into it. So I heard that song and I was like, oh, fuck, I hope the rest of the album's not going to be like this. And lo and behold, it is. It's like that. It's very, very lo-fi. It's interesting. It's interesting because, like, they went with a different label to release this one, right? Like, it was, Radiohead's shit was on EMI or something.
Yes, but I think this was also like the same year that contract expired.
Oh, really?
Because you got to keep in mind, In Rainbows was released independently. the pay what
Right.
you want online model. They
That's
broke
right.
waves
That was the
in
whole
the
thing.
industry by trying that out. So
That album though also feels a little lo-fi though. I feel like there's something about that. There's a huge sort of like, I guess, dynamic like change in the sound production from an album like any of Radiohead's albums.
are you
prior
sure you're
to
not
this,
thinking
and-
more of Hail to the Thief? Because I feel like that one is a lot closer in the like, especially with stuff like the gloaming.
Well,
Resembles this a lot closer.
in Rainbows as well though. I feel like in Rainbows, when I listened to it, I was like, did they record this at home? It just kind of got
probably
that smaller feel to it, and I feel like this one has a smaller feel to it as well. Like whether or not the intention to leave like their major label to do something that was intentionally smaller through a smaller label, whether or not that was the case, it definitely comes across like that.
And
If
in
I- if-
Rainbows, that was the case. They specifically just
Yeah.
wanted to like make an album just by themselves, like no label, no studio or anything. And then it got to the point where they were like, actually, it turns out if we don't have a producer, we don't know what we're doing, and there's no sense of direction. So they brought Nigel back again to give them direction. And I can't remember, is Nigel a producer on this, or is it all Tom?
He is, yeah, he is.
Well, that just makes sense then.
Yeah, but it's interesting because it is still like it is still very like underproduced in an intentional way.
Minimal.
I think very
Minimalist.
minimal. That's the word, minimalist.
But
It is.
also
It's minimalist.
not, because
It's
once
it's,
like every song has like that part where it peaks in terms of like the layering all the different stuff together, and our music that we make together is not unlike that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I don't know much about how these songs were kind of like written and arranged after the fact, but like I could see them being songs that have so much room to just experiment and put like another instrument here, another layer here, and just make it this big thing. But then also be like, oh, let's just remove bits from it, and then it feels like it might have been that, because the songs do seem, at least in parts of each song, like very sparse, and just like things are basically like Thom Yorke's voice is bouncing off of these like those bleep bloops,
Right.
and like that's almost entirely like your core elements of the songs until they get big and stuff.
But it could also just be more that he wanted to like have the listener focus more on the message of the more politically heavy songs than focus on the instrumentation and the.
But at the same time,
bleep
if
bloop
you
of it.
want the that message to get across, then you make a very like abstract kind of album from a relatively accessible mainstream rock band. It's kind of like one of those things with this record, like even for me, someone that I would have, back when this came out, told people that I like all genres of music and had an open mind to all different types of music. It was still just a little too on the outskirts for me to even want to sink my teeth into.
Not everyone's cup of tea.
Not
innit?
everyone's cup of tea, mate. Get some better tea, and then we'll listen to your political agenda.
I don't even actually like tea, for what it's worth,
I mean, there's so many teas out there. How could you even say that? Like,
because it
There
all
must
just
be-
tastes like pond water to me.
all of it tastes like, where are you getting your tea from?
I live in Texas, so sweet tea is the
Texas tea?
iced tea. Sweet iced tea is like
Okay, well, try
no.
try like one or two other teas.
I don't want to drink tea, and I don't want to drink coffee. You can't make me.
I don't want to make you drink coffee, but
Well, if there's any album you can compare to the experience of drinking a caffeinated drink, it's The Eraser. Once your heart rate starts beating and you feel like you're going to die, you can
Yeah.
perfectly enjoy this album.
there's no going back. No going back, baby.
Speaking
you're
of
gonna
not
have a
going
heart
back,
attack.
let's move on to track number 2, Analyze.
Yes, let's take a moment to analyze this one. I think that this song.
Okay, first, wait,
is-
hang on. Before we go anywhere further.
well, okay.
Since you're in Canada, which is formerly a nation of the British Empire, what is your take, you weird Zed saying motherfucker, on the spelling of the title of the song, Analyze? Spelled with an S over a Z.
Every time since I was, I don't know, 7 maybe until now, that I've seen any variation of the word analyze, I've always read it as analyze because it's
Well,
just funnier.
That's
You know?
obviously that's subtext to the question.
Yeah.
But that's not what I asked you.
Right. Right.
You-
What do
your
I think
answer
about
is
it?
You haven't thought about it. Then
I haven't thought
you're
about it.
busy
No,
thinking
because
about anal.
I'm too busy. I'm stuck on the first four words, the
Which
first
is
four
fair.
letters of that word.
Have you?
So
Did you ever watch Arrested Development,
I did. Yes.
where
an
Tobias's character
analropist.
was
Yeah.
half analyst, half therapist?
Are you forgetting that I was a professional twice over, an analyst and a therapist, the world's first analropist?
Yes, and you were almost arrested for those business cards.
Yes, no, it did not look good on paper, but
Analyze. I would like to point out that this is probably the song on this album that is the most fun to absolutely blare at the top of your lungs while singing along. Maybe Harrow Downhill, but Analyze just has this like giant rising structure to it that you just can't help but get sucked in to
That's a good one.
the moment when he's just going for it, you know? I tried learning this one on piano, that arpeggio, but I'm not really used to like spreading my pinkies and my thumbs that wide and playing with both hands unless it's like a chord. It's just I gave up eventually because I was just like I can't do it. But it's like that bum and you see him do it on like the Jonathan Ross show or no, I think it was the From the Basement thing he did where it was just like him solo on the piano doing 4 songs he had written, and you're just like he just does it so effortlessly. It's fucking crazy.
His fingers stretch like abnormally, like long
Or I think
distances.
he's just more traditionally learned in his piano skills, so it wasn't it. Like I feel like if you tried it, you probably wouldn't have a problem with it. But
God, I have long fingers.
yeah,
Analyze, yeah, it's a great song. I think it's one of the best, and honestly, it's like it's kind of a refreshing switch up because I think the Eraser is like intentionally. I'm going to say this word anyway, but I don't think it's the right word. But jarring because people that are familiar with Radiohead and then jumping in, you're like, whoa, this song's definitely not what I was expecting. Not that I don't know. For some reason, if I thought like back in 2006, Thom Yorke solo album, I'm thinking it's going to be acoustic. I don't know why. So that was
I think
a weird
you can
like
even argue that this album itself is slightly electro-acoustic.
slightly. I mean,
More
it's
emphasis on electro than acoustic.
abstract experimental, I think, in many ways. But Analyze is more. I don't know. It's got more of a there's aspects that you can kind of easily latch on to as a as someone that's not really like into the experimental shit or whatever. Like I think that the song has more for everybody in it. But it's a banger, and now in my life, like listening to it, love it. Definitely like top tier on this album for sure.
I love the main riff, the bum 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 bum, which he does on the piano. Like it's like a motif that goes throughout the song. But it's also just I like how the composition of it is that like whenever you have a song, you have your main chord, and then you have the other ones that create tension, and they always resolve when you go back to the main chord. That this song does that too. It's kind of like an ascending progression in the chords, but then when it gets it's never fully resolved even in the root chord. Like even the main chord is like still this weird like C minor like 7th or something. I could be totally wrong on that, but I know that it's like based in C, and like if you play the arpeggio it sounds great, but when you actually analyze it or just played it straight as a chord, it wouldn't sound like it would still feel just kind of like which is what I imagine is what living in England year-round sounds like. So it's just what that sound that's always going through your head or coming out of your lungs, like, hey, you doing all right? But it's not polite to make that noise, so people are just like, yeah. I'm all right. One last thing I want to say about Analyze before we move on is every time I use the scene edit detection tool in Premiere, where you put a full edited video in, but you need individual clips instead of manually doing it, you can let it just sit there and analyze it for however long it takes, and it'll automatically apply a cut. So every time I set that to go, and then I need a few minutes to kill while it's loading, and it says it's analyzing, I'm like, hey Siri, play Analyze by Thom Yorke. And of course that just triggered my phone for real. I gotta stop doing that as a hypothetical.
I thought you were going to say that every time you see it, you're like, analyze.
No.
And then you just move on.
We're having real adult conversations here, Mr. Randall.
I
Your
know. I'm an old
juvenile,
man.
elderly mind out of the gutter.
My juvenile elderly mind. I like that. It's more or less completely accurate.
That's the space you find yourself in being, what, 52?
Yep, 52, around the waist, baby.
I actually forget. You're like 36, 37?
I'm 36. 36, okay? 36 is the new 26, all right? Everyone.
But 37 is such a cool number.
I mean, it'll happen. I mean, God willing,
And
gotta
whenever it does
survive.
happen, I'm going to make nonstop Clerks references to you the entire 365 days.
The whole year?
Yeah.
God. All right, maybe I'll just figure out a way to skip that. I'll go into a coma or something for a year. A planned
No,
coma.
don't do that because we need to talk about the clock. Track 3,
Right.
the clock.
The clock is time's running out. This is a fucking climate song for sure, right?
I think it's like climate, but also like the who are those like doomsday scientists that in like Sweden or something that are like, we have moved the clock 1 minute to midnight, and it's supposed to
right.
like
Yeah,
represent like how close the world is to nuclear fallout, war, whatever.
They get paid money to just like move the hand of a fictional clock.
I don't know. I mean, they probably get paid money for being scientists, but not for their theater.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah.
It's a conflict with the Actors Guild. But anyway, that's probably where that imagery comes from. But it's very much like, I think we've described the sound of the album as angry, and this is one of the angriest songs. You can definitely feel like, it's speaking of loops that go on for several minutes straight and performing them live flawlessly. Have you seen the performance of him playing this song on the guitar, on the acoustic guitar on the Henry Rollins talk show?
Time is running out.
No, I haven't. Actually, I haven't seen any live footage.
I think it's on that playlist I sent you of the acoustic versions of all the, or like the live versions of all the songs on this album.
You sent me stuff to watch
a while ago.
I didn't watch it.
You know, the first out of 3 times we scheduled this? Yeah, I think I sent it to you.
Okay. Lost in the sands of time. So.
Right. But it is just fucking phenomenal. I mean, he's nailing like all of the down, but also just going and it's all on one guitar. Like that to me is like wizardry. I'm sure to you that seems like, nothing. But like I can only really do keyboards. I've tried to break into the guitar. It's very much a much bigger learning curve than anything else I've tried to attempt. Maybe other than graphic design. But like,
I mean, you got to put in the 10,000 hours.
Right, and I guess he has, because what else is there to do in the UK?
This was on the Henry Rollins show?
Yeah, so Henry Rollins,
what was he?
It's like an IFC show, I think.
Yeah, I remember that show. It was
Yeah.
embarrassing. Was he just like sitting in the background, like shuffling through his like prompt cards? Like sitting on a couch or something?
Well, I think it was only focused on Tom, like sitting on a stool playing it, and then Henry I don't think they ever show him in the background. And I don't think Tom is interviewed in the episode. I think he just performs. Anyway.
Did you ever see the episode of the Henry Rollins show that Paul Thomas Anderson was on?
No, but now I need to.
Yeah, no, it's the one with Paul Thomas Anderson is it's also kind of cringy because he's like, so, this is obviously a political statement, about oil,
Oh, he's doing There Will Be Blood?
Yeah, he's like,
no, I just thought that this character was fucking weird.
Yeah, he was like, it's based on like a book that came well before, like, George
Upton
Bush.
Sinclair. Oil.
And he's like, well, okay.
Exclamation mark.
Shuffling through his fucking question cards. Like, that didn't work, but maybe I'll stay. Like every question that he had was like related to it being like a political statement about like the oil in Iraq.
And Paul Thomas Anderson, meanwhile, is just this like surfer that doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, he's like sitting there like, no, yeah, it's just thought it was a good story or whatever. And
I actually doing the prep for today's episodes, I listened to the A24 podcast episode that he did with the Safdies talking about Uncut Gems. So
Oh, yeah.
There's a connection there. And there's also another connection, which I guess I'll spoil now, but the DP, Darius Kanji, for Uncut Gems is the same DP as the Paul Thomas Anderson directed Thom Yorke music video short film Anima from 2019. Same
Holy
year as
shit.
Uncut Gems.
Wow.
It all ties together, and it just worked out by accident because we were going to do this
nothing
last
alike. They look nothing alike.
Who is that? Oh,
Anima
you're saying
and
the
Uncut
look
Gems?
of Uncut Gems and Anima?
Yeah.
Well, it's two different directors.
Yeah, but sometimes you can tell the DOPs.
Right.
You're like, who's doing the heavy lifting?
Well, if it's mostly if it's Deakins, really.
Sure.
Roger Deakins, not multiple of
Deacon
the
from Animal
Deakin
Collective.
musicians.
Yeah,
But
you can tell when they make movies. But there's others. I think it's always a testament to the director when they use like a DOP that's used throughout other directors and it still looks different. Shows that the director's actually doing something. Because I think Brandon Crandallberg. Yeah, I think Brandon Crandallberg's films are totally fine. But they all look the fucking same, and that's because it's Karim Hussein shooting them all. And if you watch any of the other movies that he shot, they look the same too. And you're like, man, this guy's doing all the fucking heavy lifting over here. So
there's not really much to say about the clock other than it is just like it's very
one.
blunt in its messaging. Time is running out for us. You just moved your hands upon the clock. You throw coins in the wishing well. Just like all these futile gestures that society makes. But it's a theme that continues to pervade to like literally even yesterday with the assassination attempt and all that, where it's just like at some point you just numb yourself to it because if you sit there and think about it, you'll drive yourself crazy.
Yep.
That's why I'm not, in Trump's replies on Truth Social every day.
It kept me up last night, man. I gotta say, like I got really high last night when I came home from work.
You?
And yeah, I know it's weird, I know, but I got fucking ripped, and I was like, man, this is crazy to think about, Like it kind of just kept replaying in my head. I was like, it's nuts. An inch, it would be like one of these historical days, The
A day
assassination.
that would live in infamy, which I think it still will, but in a different way.
In a different way. But it's annoying now because this guy fucked the world, basically,
No, and now everyone is going to go crazy with conspiracy theories. When, what is the name or phenomenon when it's like the easiest answer is the simplest answer?
Occam's razor.
Yeah, I think that's my take. But this isn't a politics podcast, but it is an episode about politics, kind of. So
today, listeners, you hopped in at the wrong fucking time. All right,
if this is your first episode of a podcast and you're looking for left-wing grifters that just want to repeat everything they read on Twitter, this is not the podcast for you. We're idiots that just like art. Can I just say before we move on to Black Swan that you have never looked more like Tim Burton in your life than this moment?
Oh, I think maybe once I have.
Well, that I've witnessed then.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna follow that up with anything. But yeah, no.
Maybe if you had a black shirt on, it would be a lot more.
Yeah, I felt like it's you can't wear black these days because of the fucking heat wave, man.
Well,
this is exactly what Thom Yorke was trying to warn us about with these albums about climate change. Here I am listening to this album, finally appreciating it, sweating my fucking balls off. It's 38 degrees in Toronto right now. 38 degrees.
You must be freezing.
Oh, I'm on fire.
Well, it's only 38. That's only 6 degrees above freezing, so I don't know what you're complaining about.
Oh, I see what's happened here.
Yeah. So let's move on to
no explanation for the listeners.
Let's move on to
Google
the song
temperatures in Canada versus temperatures in the States.
Well, they get it. Right. We've been sitting here talking about how disgustingly Canadian you are the whole time. So,
but Americans don't know. things.
Yes, I was making a reference to the fact that Celsius and Fahrenheit have different values.
There you go. See, somebody's gonna be listening. Be like, oh, thank
What's
God.
the conversion rate?
That.
22/7 or something like that?
I don't know.
22/9? Is that pi?
I see
Am I thinking of
Fahrenheit.
pi?
Why wouldn't 0 be the freezing? It doesn't make any sense for it to be some sort of weird. What is it? 44 is the
32.
32.
See, he doesn't even know. He doesn't even know.
Why would I? It's so arbitrary. 32. That's a
You
fucking
know who
crazy
Donald
number.
Trump is, but you don't know. All right, so this next song is
Black Swan.
yes,
The song,
the song
that,
that
drops the
Darren
F-bomb.
Aronofsky adapted into a feature film in 2010.
Yes, it was a
No,
very fucked up movie, but a very awesome song. You know,
But
I think
it works out because the hook to the song is "and this is fucked up,"
it is,
or that is fucked up. He switches it up, which
Yeah.
is actually the reason why they wanted to make it a radio single, and the BBC refused. So they're like, you can't have the lyrics fucked up in your chorus and not censor it. And he's like, but that's just something people say. That's just like anyone on the street. Like you hear, like even you and I, right? The second that we hear that someone tried to assassinate Trump, we go, it's fucked up.
That's
isn't
fucked
it?
up.
Yeah,
Of course,
pretty fucked up.
it's fucked up.
Regardless
Of
of how we feel politically, it's just like that act itself. You're just like, it's just fucked up.
They're
And I'm
afraid.
sure that's how people were reacting to 9/11, like when they weren't, 6 years old like me, or I don't know, 22
Well, you see,
like
that's,
you.
That's what they're worried about. Yeah, so I was 22 when 9/11. I was 47 years old when 9/11 happened. They're afraid that some 6-year-old is gonna somehow end up with a copy of The Eraser in their hands, listen to this like weird music, and then hear this is fucked up. And and then their whole life is gonna go off the
Mommy,
rails.
what does
Like,
fucked up mean?
What is fucked? Oh, what?
It's
you've
it's
been
the
li-
way to describe the music you're listening to. Give
You've
me
been
that.
listening
Snap.
to Thom Yorke.
Uh,
Breaks the
me
CD.
snapping was for the Zoomers and Gen Alphas out there. I'm mimicking snapping in half a CD, a compact disc
No,
that
it was the
music
kid-
used to have to purchase it on a
It was the-
physical
yeah,
disc.
Oh, come on, Greg. We all know you were trying to do the parent was snapping the kid's neck, right? Grim.
Look, that's just the dichotomy of our perspectives. You go analyze, I go analyze. I go snapping a CD, you go snapping a child's neck.
Potato, tomato.
We're just two different people. Yeah, exactly. You like shitty horror movies only found on Tubi. I try to avoid them like the plague. This song is so good, man. This is like one of the top 3 songs on the album for me.
It's the best one for me.
I mean,
love
and
this
that's
song.
saying something because this is an album that is like all killer, no filler. Even the songs you think are filler are still fucking bangers, like Skip Divided and It Rained All Night, which, I mean, if anyone claims that that's filler, they're a fucking idiot. But speaking of funky, catchy bass lines, I was talking to you about, and speaking of that acoustic/live set list I sent you, the group Atoms for Peace was founded by Tom to have a live group to play the material for the Eraser live. Because if he didn't have a group, it would just be him doing like there's a version of him doing Harrow Downhill, just on like solo electric guitar, and the Clock on acoustic, and Analyze on piano, and I think Cymbal Rush also has a piano only version. In making this super group, he got Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers to be his bassist. And I don't really care for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I like Snow. That's a good song.
Yep, he hired an actual living Flea to play bass.
Right. And he did not have a sock on his penis on his otherwise naked body while performing these songs live. If anything, it was the opposite. He was like cloaked in a weird like robe that he was just like parading around on stage like he was on stilts or something while he's just like bow, 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 bow. But he really adds a lot to it. So if you compare the studio album, which I don't even know who plays the bass on it might just be Tom, with the live stuff, there's a marked difference in the amount of character that Flea puts into the bass. And this is I feel like that adds a lot because of the D&B, the drums and bass nature of electronic music, or at least in the sort of broader electronic, darker sound that Tom was going for with this album. It really accentuates just everything. It ties the room together, like the rug that was pissed on in the Bare Naked Ladies, and God, my brain is just short circuiting. And the Big Lebowski, the movie,
Right.
it ties the room, it ties it all together.
It ties it all together.
Right.
You know, I saw this interview with Thom Yorke, and I guess it was shot around the release of this album, and it's weird. It's like it looks like it looks like he's almost on trial for like war crimes or something, and he's getting like interviewed in this like dark, like, I don't know, like haunted house or something, and he was talking about how, like, you know, at that point Atoms for Peace, the band, didn't exist, because that would come a few years later. But the interviewer was like, he's like some Scottish guy. He's like, "You got any plans to play these songs?" And then, I don't think that was a Scottish accent, but whatever. And then,
You got any plans to play this song? Lawrence, if you're watching, I'm sorry. We both butchered it.
yeah, we're trying our hardest. "Got any plans to play these songs, donkey?" And so then Thom Yorke goes, "I don't know how I can, mate. You know, I'd have to have a band or something. Maybe I'll get the Radiohead blokes, you know? That'd be a trip, wouldn't it?" And
He
then
kind of did. He got Nigel to be the keyboard player. He's like one of the band members. He's not just a producer in Atoms for
it makes
Peace.
sense.
And they
too,
did make
'cause,
an
like,
actual album as Atoms for Peace that is entirely full of entirely new songs. None of them are covers, but
for sure. Yeah, it makes sense that Nigel would be part of it, because like this album it's got that kind of like, you know, Panda Bear, Sonic Boom kind of vibe going on. You know, back in the, you know, the Tomboy era kind of shit.
right. Let's start moving ahead a little faster.
Yeah. We're moving at a snail's pace here.
We should probably be on the movie already at this point. So
probably Skip Divided is fucking awesome. I love this song. I never thought that I would say that, but I love this song. It's amazing. The vocal performance is insane. The beats, it's moody, it's weird. It's got like a fucking dark soul to it.
It works as like a bridge in the middle of the album.
Mm-hmm.
And it is definitely memorable, but I will say that it's probably my least favorite because it doesn't really build to the same sort of place that the other songs do. But if it is just sort of working as like a transitionary from like Black Swan to Atoms for Peace, it's not necessary. This one I think does come up fairly often in my life, though, because I have a little puppy dog now that likes to sit on my lap, and so I always have the lyric, I'm a dog, I'm a dog, I'm a lap dog, I'm your lap dog," anytime she curls up with me. So
nice. That's
but,
adorable.
Yeah, not much else to really say about Skip Divided.
You say that? Would you say that you skip Divided?
I skimmed.
Yeah, I mean, you could have just gone along with it.
Yeah.
For the sake of, it's okay.
Yeah.
Forget
I'm
about
sorry,
it. Let's move on.
I steamrolled your pun there.
It's okay. Atoms. Are we done with that one? Atoms for Peace.
Yeah. I do. Just one more thing about Skip Divided. I do kind of like how like snappy the beat is. I don't know what he does to get these like Foley sounds for the album, but
honestly, it would be so interesting to hear like all the different sounds that went into the beats, because Detour Time on AV Tear's Sevens, you know, I saw like those videos where they were using like the most random things for beats, like fucking Adam McDaniels was like throwing a baseball, and like fucking AV Tear's like got a mitt, and he's like just, you know, capturing the sound of it going into the mitt, and that's a snare.
How have I not seen this?
I don't know how you haven't seen this.
Can you send it to me literally right this second so that I can watch it later? Because
that could be challenging, but I could try and find it after the fact.
Okay.
But there was like some other stuff too, like all these really just unconventional things to create like just, you know, impact noises that would then be used for percussion.
Damn.
And I feel like to look at what maybe went into this, I mean, I feel like it could be that way because there's so many, like you said, noises where you're just like, how the fuck did they get that?
So let's move on. Atoms for Peace, the song.
This is a good one. Starts off very minimalist.
It does. It's probably, I would say, the saddest song on the album. Definitely the most emotionally resonant. Yep, especially just because there's different degrees of Thom Yorke wailing, but this one in specific definitely feels like it's coming straight from the heart, like the the anguish that you feel while having to support a partner while in a relationship, while they're dealing with this, you know, debilitating condition or illness. It's got to take its own toll, you know, that can't be ignored. but it's also it also I would say that the lyrics are more so hopeful than they are sad. I think it is more of like a cathartic kind of feeling than wallowing, and it's not like a motion picture soundtrack or something like that, which is the name of a Radiohead song.
Mm-hmm. And that's a very emotional song.
Right. Uh-oh. My camera just died. Wow, look at that. I fixed it. I got another camera. So,
whoa. Look at that.
Atoms for Peace, top 3 songs. Probably one of the few songs that is, like we were saying, minimal enough that I can actually program it on my cheap little synth with the, basic sequencer and all that. So, pretty cool. All right. So, And It Rained All Night. Ellipses, And It Rained All Night.
So,
actually, I don't know. Some versions have an ellipses, some versions don't. But
I don't have the ellipses.
maybe it's just something I put in my head because that's something that Thom would do on like Amnesiac and like that Kid A Amnesiac era.
I mean, do you have a physical copy of this album?
I do.
That'd probably be the best way to.
And what's cool
Spotify,
about it is you can tell that it was like screen printed because you can feel the physical ridges of the paint.
Oh.
On the jacket. And it starts.
All right. Well, what does it say? What does it say on the song?
It does not have an ellipses.
Oh shit! So
and
wait,
It Rained All Night.
So is that legitimately just in your head, or is that on?
I think it is.
Apple Music is okay.
I think it's just something that I put there because starting a song with the word "and" is just a weird thing to do in the title. So it might just be that my brain filled in an ellipses because it seems like a sentence fragment.
It rained all night. You know what really stands out to me about this song is the
fact that it goes fucking hard and it's
it goes real
solid
fucking
banger.
Hard. It is a solid banger, but there is something very Rain-like about the percussive aspects of the song, and it's very hard to pinpoint why because it definitely doesn't sound like Rain, but there is something that feels like it's fucking pouring. The way that the beats are kind of the percussive elements are just kind of like
I know what you're talking about. That like
you know what I'm talking about?
Reversed sample that he's using the.
Yeah. It sounds watery.
So, piece of trivia about this song, that sample, I'm not sure exactly where the sample is, but Thom has admitted that there is a sample from The Gloaming in this song, but he says it's a split second long. So it's like if you didn't know exactly which part it was from, you wouldn't be able to tell. So,
wow.
Yes, I think that's why it sticks out even more to me because The Gloaming is basically an Eraser song that's on a Radiohead album. But yeah, this one is just it's like it takes all of the aspects. I feel like we haven't talked about the synths that have been used on this album, like the sort of like organ sound that drives a lot of the songs. I asked one time on the Radiohead Discord server, like, if anyone knew what he did to get that sound, and they're like, it sounds like he just used an organ but then added a band filter or something like that on top, or band pass, whatever you want to call it. So it seems like it probably just came from a very basic place, but it just, however they modulated it, it made this very specific sound that, like, this one I feel like it has the most like room to be like in your face with like just the texture of what should be a normal flat sort of chord sound, but then it just has like these little waves going on that are just kind of like, like it feels angry, it feels energized. It's like a screaming motor or something.
Yeah, it's you're absolutely right. That is the selection of different synth patches, I guess, that were used are phenomenal because they are like a blend between. Because I think like what really stands out is the sort of more like minimal kind of like signy like bleep bloop noises, but then there is like this whole sort of like orchestral kind of swells that happen throughout many of the songs.
Gives it a very grandiose sort of. That's what helps them build too to that climax. Like we were talking about. Speaking of climaxes, let's move on to Harrow Downhill, which is probably the peak of the album, at least in terms of like the intensity and the anger that you can feel.
Huge song.
Great song.
Yep.
Probably one of the ones where the lyrics like really stick out, even just upon like first listen. Like, because I actually am going to look this up because there was a story that inspired this one specifically. Yorke wrote Harrow Downhill about David Kelly, a whistleblower who died after telling a reporter that the British government had falsely identified weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Kelly's body was found in the Harrow Downhill woods near Yorke's former school in Oxfordshire. According to the Globe and Mail, the song resembles a love song with a sense of menace and grim political showdown. Yorke was uncomfortable about the subject matter and conscious of Kelly's grieving family, but felt that not to write it would perhaps have been worse. He described it as the angriest song he had ever written.
Wow.
Which I can believe that, because this is really just like, once you hear the story behind that, it kind of it puts you in the same space where you're just like, yeah, what the fuck? But it really is just, the song is like written from the perspective of the deceased. And like the main lyric that sticks out to me is, did I fall or was I pushed? And where's the blood? Like all of these different questions that can be raised that were just sort of swept under the rug for the sake of, not disturbing the peace. And no, focus more on the terrorists, not on what we're up to, So it's, it really is just like, God damn,
It is harrowing, this Harrow Downhill.
And it really is just like the perfect, like in a morbid way, like the fact that that's the location where it was. It's just like, I'm sorry, but how perfect is that
perfect
for the
of a
title
name?
of the song?
Exactly. Like it's not like there's so many ways you can look at that too. Like it's harrowing, but it's also going downhill. Harrow.
But it was up on the hill.
It was up on the hill,
Harrow Downhill, near where you used to go to school. That's where I am. So it's almost as if he's singing the song to Tom, but it's Tom writing lyrics from the perspective of the guy singing it. There's many layers. It's like an onion and ogres. All right, well, let's wrap this up then, because
makes perfect sense.
I guess before we get to the closer, let's quickly talk about the Spitting Feathers EP, the B-sides and bonus material from this era, because there's some really good stuff. Most people probably know, more so than I would think, the actual album itself, and the B-sides is the single that is on Neither, called Hearing Damage, which is clearly written from the same sessions, because if you look at the album art, it's like identical to the
same. Yeah.
Hearing Damage, which was on the Twilight New Moon soundtrack. It was either New Moon or Eclipse. I think it was New Moon.
Makes perfect sense, because when you think of great art, you think of the Twilight movie franchise.
Well, that's what's so fucked up about these like teen romance movies, is that they all are like, okay, the movie's dog shit, fine. Teens are going to see it no matter what. We might as well give them a kick-ass soundtrack, even if none of it appears in the movie, or if it doesn't even fit the tone of what we're going for. And that's very much indicative of the first Twilight movie, where they play 15 Step from In Rainbows by Radiohead as the credit music. And as a kid, I hadn't heard of Radiohead, so when I saw, that was the only Twilight movie I ever saw, was the first one, and I got to the end, I was just like, okay, that's the end of the movie. That was a dumb movie. And then years later, someone's like, oh yeah, 15 Step was in Twilight. You're like, what the fuck? And you go and you watch the clip on YouTube, and you're like, no, come on, that has to be an edit. That is so out of place. Why? And then you just, nope, it's on the soundtrack, and it's real. You're just like, it's so fucking bizarre. So
it is weird. But but all of the Twilight soundtracks actually had like some reasonable to pretty good like musical contributions on them. And I remember that, not specifically like the Thom Yorke song, the Hearing Damage, but I think it was like for another one, because my cousin, she's like younger than me, and she was really into like the Twilight movies. And I think it was like Christmas or something, like many years back when that shit was coming out. I was like, how do I relate, And I was like, I don't want to get something lame, but I know that they like Twilight, which is lame. But then I saw that the albums had some decent, like, musical performers on them. So I was like, this is the middle ground. But I don't think we ever talked about it anyway after that.
So yeah, it wasn't until like years later that I also found out through, you know who Your Movie Sucks is? YMS on YouTube. Him and his friends did a series of videos where they reacted live to movies and then did like a supercut of all the best moments. And when they did the Twilight series, they get to the part in New Moon where they're playing this song, and Adam's like, whoa, what? Why is there good music all of a sudden? There's not really any crossover, and we don't really have much of an audience, but one of the guys from those videos, Scott Henson, who was a longtime friend of Adam's, just passed away recently. So I feel like we should acknowledge that, which is sad. Because he was a very funny guy, had a lot of personality, and I mean, I didn't follow his own solo channel stuff, but it was definitely it was like when Trevor Moore passed. It was just as sudden. It was just as big of a loss and a gut punch. So, R.I.P. to Scott. But let's get back on topic.
Yeah,
the Spitting Feathers EP is the B-sides.
Oh, right.
I just want to point out one song, which is A Rat's Nest, which is like the main thrust of it, like the core of the song is like a sample in reverse, which is reminiscent of Like Spinning Plates, I think the song is called, on Amnesiac.
Right.
It definitely feels like more of a Radiohead song than Thom Yorke, but this EP is all over the place because like the next song, I Love Ya, feels like a Tomorrow's Modern Boxes song. And then the Drunk Machine just seems like it has no resemblance to any of the other songs in this era. But it is definitely like...
But they're still like loop heavy, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like there's that
like
thing
dirtier,
kind of,
I would say, in terms of the like sound palette.
Yeah. And that one actually sounds like it was made while he might have been actually drunk.
A British person drunk?
Sounds it's uncommon,
unfeasible,
but it happens.
And then the fourth song, Jetstream. The only thing I really want to point out about that one is it's like, are there like 30-second note kick drum hits on that song? I swear the like kick is like so fast. I can't even, because it's like at certain points, to the point where you can barely like you can hear the like hard cut of the start of the hit, but like it's so quick that it had to have been done in like a DAW or something. You're not getting that on a fucking pad.
I feel like you know, listening to that EP, that the whole thing just reeks of like, you know, Aphex Twin era IDM. It's just so fast and weird. And
I
like
wouldn't
choppy.
be surprised if Aphex Twin was a big inspiration for Thom.
Oh, for sure.
I'm sure he's
Definitely.
even said as much in the past. But
Yeah.
That's probably how many electronic musicians out there.
Yeah, I mean, like not even exclusively electronic musicians. Like Richard D. James is a fucking inspiration to all. Even if you don't make music, he's an inspiration.
All right, let's wrap it up. Cymbal Rush, final song. We kind of pretty much already talked about it earlier. Very bleep bloopy. Builds a lot. But this one also has like the... it kind of reminds me of the closer on Give Up by the Postal Service.
Sure, yeah. Nobody likes that song.
I like it, but it doesn't really match the rest of the album.
It
does have just like the like driving...
Do you like it, Greg? Do you know what the name of it is?
I like it, but I at this moment don't recall what it's called. Do you remember what it's called?
I don't, but I admitted that I don't like it. I skip it.
No, what? But you know what I mean. It has like that. There's just like something like this one sounds like it has the most like acoustic live drums on it than any of the other songs.
Sure, yeah.
And so it might have been that he even had like Phil Selway, the Radiohead drummer, come in and do it. But they have like a very similar sort of like build up and then just like a hard fall off at the end.
Yeah, I would actually liken this song more to, and this being a more favorable approach to it, I think, is I would liken it more to Strawberry Jam with,
Derek?
you know, yeah, exactly. Like ending on a bit of a weird one, you know, when it's like maybe your logical conclusion was the song just before it.
Wow,
But,
we all know that the real closer
you know.
to Strawberry Jam is Cypher.
Well, I know,
because it must be because Spotify had it as that for so long, and that was the first way I heard the album. So that must mean that it was the original artistic intent to be that. Especially when someone notified them via Instagram DM and they took it off Spotify. That doesn't change anything.
So you know what I'm saying is Derek is like this kind of more like it, or even I kind of feel like sometimes I feel the same way about Recycling at the end of Painting With.
I can see that. It's more just like about the tone of the song than anything that I think ties them together. But that's what you want for a closer. I think most people know when you do an album, you do like, well, it's like even the structure of a movie. You don't just, most movies don't end right at the very highest point of the climax. There's like still some falling action. And so this is definitely evocative of that. But this also has its own sort of like, just like everything else on the album, this big energy to it. And it goes from a bleep bloop song to, you know, a Radiohead song kind of, and then back to it's sort of all over the place, but it I don't know what else to say about it. It's just bleep bleep bloop bloop bloop. It's no videotape, the Radiohead song, not the Jordan Randall song, as far as closures go. But I think if you're gonna have an album like this, you got to at least leave the listener with a little bit of a hopeful feeling in their brain, and not just, you know, inspire someone to go out and throw acid in brown people's faces on the streets of London. You know, you want to have the opposite intended effect with your art. So,
For sure. If your art amounts to throwing acid at anybody, you're not doing it right.
well, what if Banksy did it?
I'd say he's still not doing it right, you know?
There are better ways to get your message across. Go put another fucking stencil on the what was it, the wall in Gaza? What, I can't remember the name of it.
I don't even know about that, but
When we talk about Exit to the Gift Shop, we'll
do anything else, you know? I
just
mean,
don't.
Maybe not.
If we can sum up our discussion of this album in one key sentiment, it's don't throw acid in people's faces.
No,
just don't
come
do
on.
it.
Don't do it. Come on. Didn't your mama teach you better?
Didn't your mum teach you right?
Didn't your mum say don't throw acid in people's faces?
You're only supposed to pour it down their throats, and even then, it's lysergic dithalamide. Or if you're John Lennon's dentist, you put it in his tea during dinner, which you should not do. Don't drug people against their knowledge. I don't care how awesome the drug itself is. They need to know what's happening.
Yeah,
So.
I'm
gonna write a whole Eraser type album about that very motivated feeling. That's what's gonna happen now.
Has this happened to you before?
No,
Were you drugged?
no, but I would like to, you know,
Like to be drugged?
no. I want to spread the message of not drugging people.
Right.
That's all.
Okay.
Is that so wrong?
No, it's right. It's right. I can stand behind that.
Is it I'm just rambling because I don't know how to end this episode?
I think this is the best ending we've probably ever had to an episode.
I don't think that's true.
I don't know. Most of our endings are clunky, so
So this one just fits right in then.
this fits right in.
All right. Well,
Listeners, let us know what the worst ending is in the comments.
no
means
one
you
that
gotta
actually
go
listens
watch-
to this makes it through more than the first 30 seconds. I hope you know that.
But maybe, though, if we inspire people now, you know, by saying that our endings are notoriously bad, they can go and at least just jump to the end and see how bad the
And
endings
investigate
are.
it. Yeah. But the
Investigate
question
and-
is, how do they know where the end of our discussion ends and the end of the episode is? Actually, it's probably fairly obvious.
Probably around the same time, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for listening/watching to this episode of A Musician and a Filmmaker. We'll be back next time to talk about Uncut Gems, and then after that will be Jordan's month. I guess we should point out that this is technically, both of these are my suggestions.
This is Greg's month.
Just because of the way that scheduling and rescheduling and all that worked out. Normally, each of us picks the opposite, recommendation, and then we swap every month, but it just so happened that both the movie and the album were recommended by me. So next month, we're going to have Jordan recommend a movie and an album, and we may or may not have a surprise guest joining us. So stay tuned. Thank you for listening. Peace out. Don't throw acid in people's faces, and don't try to kill the president. Have a good one.